Picture yourself on a moonless night, standing at the edge of a tropical beach. The waves whisper against the shore, and the sand still holds the warmth of yesterday's sun. Then, slowly, shapes begin to emerge from the darkness of the ocean. One by one, massive forms haul themselves onto the sand, their flippers leaving deep tracks behind them. These are sea turtles, ancient travelers returning to the very beach where their own lives began decades ago. They've crossed entire ocean basins to be here, navigating thousands of miles through featureless water with a precision that still mystifies scientists. Tonight, they've come home to nest, to bury their eggs in the same sand that once cradled them. And as you watch them dig, patient and methodical in the soft darkness, you're witnessing a ritual that has repeated itself, generation after generation, for over 100 million years. Welcome to Bedtime Biology, where science meets serenity. Each night, we explore the quiet wonders of the natural world, calming your mind and sparking your curiosity. If you like these videos, please consider subscribing to the channel and commenting below if you have any feedback or suggestions for topics of future episodes. Sea turtles belong to an ancient lineage, a family tree that stretches back through time to an age when dinosaurs still walked the earth. These remarkable reptiles have survived mass extinctions, outlived countless other species, and adapted to every major ocean on our planet. There are 7 species of sea turtles alive today, each with its own story, its own adaptations, its own way of moving through the world. Some are giants, weighing as much as a small car. Others are modest in size, but no less extraordinary in their abilities. Together, they represent one of evolution's great success stories, a testament to the power of adaptation and the resilience of life itself. The leatherback sea turtle stands apart from all the others, not just in size, but in form. It's the largest of all sea turtles, reaching lengths of over 6 feet and weights approaching 1,500 pounds. Unlike its relatives, the leatherback has no hard shell. Instead, its back is covered with tough, leathery skin, reinforced by thousands of tiny bone plates embedded beneath the surface, giving it a distinctive ridged appearance that feels almost otherworldly to the touch. This flexible shell allows the leatherback to dive deeper than any other sea turtle, plunging to depths exceeding 4,000 feet into the cold, dark waters where jellyfish, its primary prey, drift in gelatinous clouds. The leatherback has evolved remarkable adaptations for life in these frigid depths. Its large body mass, dark coloration, and layers of fatty tissue help it retain heat, while a countercurrent heat exchange system warms cold blood returning from its flippers before it reaches the turtle's core. This allows leatherbacks to hunt in waters that would leave other sea turtles cold-stunned and helpless. The green sea turtle, the second largest of the species, gets its name not from the color of its shell, which is typically olive brown with beautiful starburst patterns on each scute, but from the greenish color of the fat beneath its shell. This distinctive hue comes from its diet as an adult, when it becomes one of the only herbivorous sea turtles, grazing extensively on seagrasses and algae in shallow coastal waters. A mature green turtle can weigh up to 400 pounds and measure nearly 4 feet in length. Its serrated beak, like the edge of a saw, is perfectly adapted for tearing seagrass and scraping algae from rocks and coral. Young green turtles, however, are carnivorous, feeding on jellyfish, worms, and small crustaceans, before gradually transitioning to their plant-based diet as they mature. This dramatic dietary shift from meat-eater to vegetarian is relatively rare in nature and reflects the green turtle's remarkable adaptability. The loggerhead sea turtle earned its name from its exceptionally large head, which houses powerful jaw muscles capable of crushing hard-shelled prey with ease. Adult loggerheads typically weigh between 200 and 400 pounds, with carapaces measuring around 3 feet in length. Their massive jaws allow them to feast on conchs, whelks, horseshoe crabs, and other armored creatures that would be impossible for most marine animals to consume. The loggerhead's reddish-brown shell and large head give it a distinctive, somewhat prehistoric appearance. These turtles are highly migratory, often traveling thousands of miles between feeding and nesting grounds, and they're the most abundant sea turtle species nesting on beaches in the United States. Despite this relative abundance, loggerhead populations have declined significantly in recent decades, making them vulnerable to extinction. The hawksbill sea turtle is named for its narrow, pointed beak that resembles a bird of prey. This specialized tool allows hawksbills to reach into small crevices in coral reefs to extract their primary food source, sponges. In fact, hawksbills are the only sea turtle species that can survive almost exclusively on a sponge diet, and they play a crucial role in maintaining healthy coral reef ecosystems by controlling sponge populations that would otherwise overgrow and smother corals. Hawksbills are among the smaller sea turtles, with adults typically weighing between 100 and 200 pounds and measuring around 3 feet in length. Their shells, beautifully patterned with amber, brown, and yellow streaks, have historically made them targets for the tortoiseshell trade, driving them to the brink of extinction. Today, hawksbills are critically endangered, with populations having declined by over 90% in the last century. The Kemp's Ridley sea turtle holds the distinction of being the smallest sea turtle species and one of the rarest. Named after Richard Kemp, O'Oid, fisherman who first submitted specimens for scientific identification in the early 20th century. Adult Kemp's Ridleys typically weigh around 100 pounds and measure just 2 feet in length. Their nearly circular grey-green carapaces and hooked beaks make them distinctive among sea turtles. These turtles are carnivores with a particular fondness for crabs, which they hunt along sandy and muddy bottoms in shallow coastal waters. The Kemp's Ridley has an extremely restricted range, nesting primarily on beaches along the Gulf of Mexico in northern Mexico and Texas. 50 years ago, this species came perilously close to extinction, with population numbers plummeting due to egg collection and adult harvest. Thanks to intensive conservation efforts, Kemp's Ridley populations have begun to recover, though they remain critically endangered. The olive Ridley sea turtle gets its name from the olive-green colour of its heart-shaped shell. It's one of the smaller sea turtle species, similar in size to the Kemp's Ridley, with adults weighing between 75 and 100 pounds and measuring around 2 feet in length. Olive Ridleys are omnivorous, with a diverse diet that includes jellyfish, snails, crabs, shrimp, and occasionally algae and seaweed. Despite being the most abundant sea turtle species in the world, olive Ridleys face significant threats from fishing bycatch and coastal development. What makes olive Ridleys truly remarkable is their nesting behaviour. While many olive Ridleys nest solitarily on beaches throughout the tropics, certain populations engage in synchronized mass nesting events called arrebadas, where tens of thousands of females emerge simultaneously to lay their eggs on just a few select beaches. This spectacular phenomenon, which we'll explore in greater detail later, represents one of nature's most extraordinary displays. The flatback sea turtle is the least studied and most geographically restricted of all sea turtle species. Found only in the waters surrounding Australia, Papua New Guinea, and Indonesia, flatbacks have the smallest geographic range of any sea turtle. Their name comes from their distinctively flat carapace, which lacks the pronounced dome seen in other species. Adult flatbacks typically measure around 3 feet in length and weigh between 100 and 200 pounds. Unlike most other sea turtle species, flatback hatchlings skip the oceanic phase of life entirely, remaining in shallow coastal waters from the moment they enter the sea. Flatbacks are omnivores, feeding on sea cucumbers, jellyfish, soft corals, mollusks, and seaweed in the shallow, soft-bottomed habitats they prefer. Because of their limited range and the relative inaccessibility of many of their nesting beaches, flatbacks remain somewhat mysterious, and scientists continue to learn about their behavior and ecology. The story of every sea turtle begins the same way, in the darkness beneath the sand. It starts with a female turtle, fully grown and sexually mature, making her way to shore on a warm night. She's likely between 25 and 50 years old, depending on her species, having spent decades growing and feeding in the ocean before reaching reproductive maturity. She may have traveled thousands of miles to reach this beach, guided by senses we're only beginning to understand. This isn't just any beach, it's the beach where she herself hatched decades ago, the very stretch of sand that marks the beginning of her own story. Female sea turtles display what scientists call natal homing, returning with remarkable precision to nest in the same area where they were born. The journey to reach this spot may have taken months, as turtles migrate between distant feeding grounds and breeding areas. Some loggerheads, nesting on beaches in Florida, for instance, spend their non-breeding years feeding in waters off the coast of Africa, crossing the entire Atlantic Ocean twice just to reproduce. When the female turtle emerges from the surf, she hauls her massive body up the beach, leaving deep tracks in the sand with each laborious movement of her flippers. Sea turtles are beautifully adapted for swimming, their streamlined bodies and powerful flippers propelling them gracefully through water. On land, however, they're awkward and vulnerable, moving slowly and stopping frequently to rest. She crawls beyond the high tide line, seeking out a suitable spot to dig her nest. The location matters. The sand must be the right temperature and moisture level, free from obstacles, and high enough to avoid flooding during high tides. Using her rear flippers, she begins to dig, excavating a flask-shaped cavity in the sand. The hole is typically 16 to 20 inches deep, and the digging process can take well over an hour. She works methodically, alternating her flippers to scoop out sand and create a chamber just the right size for her clutch. Once the nest is complete, the female enters a trance-like state and begins laying her eggs. They emerge 2 or 3 at a time, dropping softly into the sandy chamber below. The eggs are spherical and soft-shelled, their leathery texture quite different from the hard, brittle shells of bird eggs. A single clutch can contain anywhere from 50 to over 300 eggs, depending on the species. Leatherbacks typically lay around 100 eggs per nest, while smaller species like the Kemp's ridley may lay fewer. Green turtles often exceed 100 eggs per clutch, and some large females can lay 150 or more. The entire laying process takes between 30 minutes and an hour. Once the last egg has been deposited, the female carefully fills the nest chamber, using her rear flippers to push sand back into the hole. She then camouflages the site by throwing sand in all directions with her front flippers, disguising the exact location of her eggs from predators. Finally, exhausted from her efforts, she makes her way back to the ocean, leaving her eggs to develop on their own. Female sea turtles typically nest multiple times during a single breeding season, returning to the beach every 2 to 3 weeks to lay another clutch. This strategy ensures that even if some nests are destroyed by predators, storms, or other threats, at least a portion of her eggs will survive. However, nesting is extraordinarily energetically demanding. After a breeding season, females must return to their feeding grounds to replenish their energy stores, and most won't nest again for another 2 to 4 years. Some females may wait even longer between breeding seasons, especially if food is scarce or environmental conditions are poor. Males, in contrast, typically attempt to breed every year, though they never come ashore. They wait in the waters offshore, mating with females as they make their way to and from the nesting beach. Beneath the sand, the eggs begin their development. The embryos grow slowly at first, drawing nutrients from the yolk inside each egg. The incubation period varies by species and environmental conditions, but most sea turtle eggs hatch after 45 to 70 days. Temperature plays a crucial role not just in the speed of development, but in one of the most remarkable aspects of sea turtle biology, the determination of sex. Unlike mammals, birds, and many other animals whose sex is determined by chromosomes, at the moment of fertilization, sea turtles have temperature-dependent sex determination. The temperature of the sand during a critical period of embryonic development, roughly the middle third of incubation, dictates whether a hatchling will be male or female. This thermosensitive period is when the gonads of the developing turtle become committed to becoming either testes or ovaries, and once this decision is made, it's irreversible. The relationship between temperature and sex follows a predictable pattern. In general, cooler incubation temperatures produce male hatchlings, while warmer temperatures produce females. For most sea turtle species, eggs that incubate below about 82 degrees Fahrenheit will develop as males, while eggs that incubate above approximately 89 degrees Fahrenheit will become females. Between these temperature extremes lies the pivotal temperature, usually around 84 degrees Fahrenheit, at which approximately half the hatchlings will be male and half female. Nests with temperatures that fluctuate around this pivotal point will produce a mix of both sexes, while nests that remain consistently cool or consistently warm throughout the thermosensitive period can produce clutches that are entirely male or entirely female. Many factors influence nest temperature, including the depth of the nest, the color and grain size of the sand, the amount of vegetation providing shade, the level of moisture in the sand, and the local climate. Nests laid early in the season, when ambient temperatures are cooler, tend to produce more males. Later in the season, as temperatures rise, the proportion of female hatchlings increases. This temperature-dependent system has worked successfully for sea turtles for millions of years, allowing populations to maintain balanced sex ratios across varying environmental conditions. However, climate change poses a significant threat to this delicate mechanism. As global temperatures rise and nesting beaches become warmer, many populations are already producing heavily female-biased sex ratios. Some nesting beaches in particularly warm regions, such as Rain Island in Australia, one of the largest green turtle rookeries in the world, have been producing almost exclusively female hatchlings since the 1990s. Scientists studying these populations have found that over 99% of juvenile green turtles from the northern Great Barrier Reef are female. This extreme imbalance raises concerns about the long-term viability of these populations. While a few males can fertilize many females, if the skew becomes too extreme, there may not be enough males to maintain genetic diversity and reproductive success. The turtles we're watching hatch today won't reach sexual maturity for 25 to 50 years, so the full demographic impact of these skewed sex ratios won't be apparent for decades. After weeks of patient development beneath the sand, the hatchlings are finally ready to emerge. Using a specialized egg tooth called a carbuncle, each hatchling breaks through its shell. The carbuncle is a temporary pointed projection on the tip of the snout that exists solely for this purpose and falls off shortly after hatching. Once the first hatchlings break free from their eggs, they don't immediately dig upward. Instead, the entire clutch coordinates their emergence in a remarkable display of cooperation. As hatchlings at the bottom of the nest chamber push upward, those at the top dig away at the ceiling of the nest. The group moves as a collective, with individuals at the top scraping away sand while those below compact it beneath them. This collaborative digging can take several days, with the mass of hatchlings slowly ascending through the sand column toward the surface. The hatchlings time their final emergence carefully. Most wait until nightfall to break through the last layer of sand and emerge onto the beach. The cooler nighttime temperatures make the journey across the beach less taxing, and darkness provides some protection from the many predators that hunt the beaches during the day. Birds, crabs, foxes, raccoons, and other animals eagerly await the emergence of sea turtle hatchlings, which represent an easy, protein-rich meal. Under the cover of darkness, the tiny turtles have a slightly better chance of reaching the ocean unseen. As the first hatchling pokes its head through the sand, it may pause as if testing the air. Then, suddenly, the entire clutch erupts from the nest. Dozens of small, dark forms spilling out onto the beach. They're immediately drawn toward the brightest horizon, which under natural conditions is the ocean, where starlight and moonlight reflect off the water's surface. This instinct, while reliable for millions of years, has become problematic in the modern era. Artificial lights from buildings, streetlights, and beachfront developments can disorient hatchlings, causing them to crawl away from the ocean and toward dangerous areas where they may become dehydrated, exhausted, or fall prey to predators. The hatchlings that successfully orient themselves toward the ocean begin their frantic dash across the sand. They're tiny, weighing just 1 to 2 ounces and measuring only about 2 inches long, but they move with determined urgency. Every second on the beach exposes them to danger. Ghost crabs emerge from their burrows to snatch unwary hatchlings. Seabirds circle overhead, ready to dive down and pluck them up. The journey from nest to ocean which may span 50 to 100 feet or more, feels monumental for such small creatures. Their flippers, which will one day propel them gracefully through water, now work in rapid alternating strokes, pulling their bodies forward across the sand. They don't stop, don't rest, driven by instinct to reach the water as quickly as possible. Those that make it to the surf zone aren't safe yet. As waves wash over them, the hatchlings must navigate the turbulent shallows, avoiding being washed back onto shore, while simultaneously avoiding predators like crabs and small fish that hunt in these transitional waters. Once a hatchling passes beyond the breaking waves and enters deeper water, something remarkable happens. It enters what scientists call a swimming frenzy, a period of nearly continuous swimming that can last for several days. During this frantic journey, the hatchling swims almost without pause, powered entirely by the remnants of yolk still present in its body from the egg. The hatchling doesn't stop to feed or rest, swimming with desperate urgency to put as much distance as possible between itself and the shore. This swimming frenzy serves a crucial purpose. It carries the tiny turtle away from coastal waters, where predators are abundant and dangers multiply, and out into the relative safety of the open ocean. The exact distance travelled during this initial journey varies, but studies suggest hatchlings may swim 20 or more miles from shore before the frenzy ends, and they begin their oceanic phase of life. What happens next has been termed the lost years, one of the great mysteries of sea turtle biology. After the swimming frenzy ends, the young turtles essentially vanish from human observation. They're too small to track effectively with satellite tags, too rare to encounter reliably at sea, and too mobile to study in any concentrated area. For most sea turtle species, we simply don't know where they go or what they do during this early oceanic phase of their lives, which can last anywhere from a few years to more than a decade. Scientists have pieced together fragments of information about the lost years through various methods, including studying the stomach contents of deceased juveniles, analyzing stable isotopes in turtle tissues to infer diet and location, and occasionally capturing young turtles in areas where they seem to congregate. These scattered clues suggest that many sea turtle species associate with floating mats of sargassum seaweed, particularly in the North Atlantic, where ocean currents concentrate this brown algae into large patches. The sargassum provides both food and shelter, its tangled fronds hosting a rich community of small invertebrates that juvenile turtles can eat, while the floating mass itself offers some protection from predators. During the lost years, juvenile turtles grow slowly but steadily, their diets varying depending on what they can find in their oceanic habitat. They're typically omnivorous during this stage, eating whatever small prey items they encounter, including jellyfish, crustaceans, small fish, and various floating organisms. As they grow, they gradually become less vulnerable to predation. A hatchling measuring 2 inches is prey for almost any fish or seabird large enough to swallow it. A juvenile the size of a dinner plate, however, faces far fewer predators. The turtle's shell hardens and strengthens as it grows, providing increasing protection. Still, life in the open ocean presents its own challenges. Food can be scarce and patchy in distribution. Storms can be deadly, and even at this larger size, juveniles remain vulnerable to sharks and other large marine predators. Mortality rates during the lost years are extraordinarily high. Scientists estimate that only 1 in 1,000 hatchlings will survive to adulthood, with most deaths occurring during this poorly understood oceanic phase. Eventually, after years drifting with ocean currents and feeding in the open sea, juvenile sea turtles undergo another transition. They return to coastal waters, where they'll spend their remaining years as juveniles and eventually mature into breeding adults. The timing of this transition varies by species. Green, loggerhead, and hawksbill turtles typically make this move at around 10 to 15 years of age, when they've reached the size of a dinner plate, or slightly larger. Leatherbacks and olive ridleys, in contrast, may remain in oceanic waters throughout their lives, though even they spend time in coastal areas during breeding seasons. When juveniles return to nearshore environments, they often develop more specialized diets and settle into specific foraging areas where they'll remain for years, sometimes decades, growing slowly towards sexual maturity. For green turtles, this is when the dramatic dietary shift occurs, as they transition from eating small animals to grazing almost exclusively on seagrass and algae. Loggerheads settle into areas with abundant, hard-shelled prey. Hawksbills seek out coral reefs where sponges thrive. How do sea turtles navigate across thousands of miles of featureless ocean? How does a female turtle, having spent decades feeding perhaps halfway around the world from where she was born, find her way back to the specific beach where her own life began? These questions have puzzled scientists for generations, but research over the past few decades has revealed an extraordinary answer. Sea turtles navigate using Earth's magnetic field. The planet itself functions as a giant magnet, with magnetic field lines flowing between the North and South poles. These field lines vary in intensity and angle depending on location, creating a kind of magnetic signature unique to each spot on Earth. Sea turtles can detect both the intensity and the inclination angle of these magnetic field lines, giving them the ability to determine their position, much as we might use latitude and longitude. This geomagnetic sense essentially provides turtles with a built-in GPS system, allowing them to navigate accurately even when they can't see land, stars, or other visual landmarks. Scientists discovered this remarkable ability through a series of elegant experiments. Researchers placed young sea turtles in large tanks surrounded by coils that could generate controlled magnetic fields. By changing the magnetic field in the tank to match that of different geographic locations, scientists could effectively transport the turtles from the animal's perspective to different parts of the ocean. The turtles responded by swimming in the direction they would need to travel if they were actually at that location. For instance, when exposed to a magnetic field characteristic of waters north of their actual position, loggerhead hatchlings would swim southward as if to correct their course. When exposed to a field from south of their position, they'd swim northward. This proved that the turtles weren't simply using magnetic fields as a compass to maintain a consistent heading, but were actually using the magnetic information to determine their location and navigate toward a specific destination. But how do they know where to go? How does a hatchling that has never seen its natal beach, that emerged from the sand and immediately entered the ocean, know how to return to that specific location decades later? The answer lies in a process called geomagnetic imprinting. When sea turtle hatchlings emerge from the nest and crawl across the beach to the ocean, they imprint on the unique magnetic signature of that location. The magnetic field at the natal beach becomes, in essence, a home address stored in the turtle's memory. Decades later, when the now adult turtle is ready to breed, it uses this imprinted magnetic signature to navigate back to the region where it was born. The turtle may have wandered thousands of miles during its time at sea, carried by ocean currents and following food sources, but the magnetic memory of its birthplace remains, guiding it home. Evidence for geomagnetic imprinting comes from several sources. One particularly compelling study analyzed 19 years of data on loggerhead sea turtle nesting locations along the Florida coast. Scientists knew that Earth's magnetic field changes slowly over time, with the magnetic signatures of specific locations drifting gradually along coastlines. If turtles truly use geomagnetic imprinting to locate their natal beaches, then, as the magnetic signatures of adjacent beach areas converge, more turtles should nest in those locations. Conversely, as magnetic signatures diverge, fewer turtles should nest there. This is exactly what the data showed. Nesting density increased significantly in coastal areas, where magnetic signatures converged over time and decreased in places where they diverged. The correlation was strong and consistent, providing powerful evidence that turtles navigate using the magnetic signatures they imprinted upon as hatchlings. Research has also revealed that sea turtles don't simply navigate using a single magnetic measurement, but maintain a sophisticated magnetic map of the ocean. They can detect subtle changes in the magnetic field and adjust their course accordingly, maintaining their trajectory even when currents push them off course. Satellite tracking studies have followed adult turtles during their migrations, and the data shows remarkably direct routes between feeding and breeding areas, even across vast stretches of open ocean where there are no landmarks. Some green turtles migrate over 1,200 miles between feeding grounds off the coast of Brazil and nesting beaches on Ascension Island, a tiny speck of land in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. They make this journey repeatedly throughout their lives, navigating with such precision that they consistently reach an island just 5 miles across, surrounded by thousands of miles of empty ocean in every direction. Without their magnetic sense, such navigation would be impossible. Scientists are still working to understand exactly how sea turtles detect magnetic fields. The mechanism likely involves specialized cells containing magnetic minerals like magnetite, which respond to magnetic fields by triggering neural signals that the turtle's brain interprets as positional information. These magnetoreceptive cells may be located in the turtle's head or possibly distributed throughout their bodies. Research suggests that multiple sensory systems work in concert during navigation. While geomagnetic information provides the primary navigational cues over long distances, turtles may also use ocean currents, wave patterns, chemical cues in the water, and possibly even celestial cues like the sun or stars when they surface to breathe. As they near their destination, other senses likely become more important. The smell of their natal beach, carried on ocean currents, may provide the final confirmation that they've arrived at the right place. This multisensory approach ensures that turtles can navigate successfully, even when some cues are unavailable. Sea turtles are air-breathing reptiles, equipped with lungs rather than gills. They must surface regularly to breathe, yet they spend the vast majority of their lives underwater, making extended dives that would be impossible for most air-breathing animals. How do they manage this? The answer lies in a suite of remarkable physiological adaptations that allow sea turtles to hold their breath for hours at a time. At rest, most sea turtle species can remain submerged for 4 to 7 hours before needing to breathe. Even during active swimming and foraging, they can stay underwater for 30 to 60 minutes or longer. These impressive breath-holding abilities depend on several key adaptations that work together to conserve oxygen and extend dive times. First, sea turtles have relatively large lungs for their body size, providing substantial capacity for oxygen storage. Their lungs are positioned high in their bodies, just beneath the carapace, and extend along much of the length of the shell. Unlike the compact, somewhat rigid lungs of mammals, sea turtle lungs are more compliant and can be filled to capacity, maximizing oxygen uptake with each breath. When a turtle surfaces to breathe, it doesn't simply take a quick gulp of air. Instead, it engages in rapid, efficient breathing that exchanges a remarkably high percentage of the air in its lungs with each breath. Studies have shown that sea turtles can exchange between 27 and 80% of their lung volume with a single breath, far more than land reptiles, and even more than many mammals. This efficiency means that just a few quick breaths at the surface can fully replenish their oxygen stores. Sea turtles also have extraordinarily high concentrations of hemoglobin in their blood, the protein that carries oxygen from the lungs to the body's tissues. Additionally, their muscles contain high levels of myoglobin, another oxygen-binding protein that stores oxygen within muscle tissue itself. These oxygen storage proteins effectively create reserves throughout the turtle's body, providing oxygen that can be drawn upon during extended dives. When a turtle submerges, its metabolism slows dramatically, a process known as metabolic depression. As ectothermic animals, sea turtles' body temperatures are largely determined by the surrounding water. In cooler water, their metabolism naturally slows, reducing their oxygen consumption. Even in warmer water, however, diving triggers physiological changes that further reduce metabolic rate. The turtle's heart rate slows, blood flow is redistributed away from non-essential organs and toward the brain and heart, and the turtle enters a state of physiological quiescence that minimizes energy expenditure and oxygen use. The lungs serve a dual purpose in sea turtles, functioning not only as respiratory organs, but also as buoyancy control devices. The amount of air a turtle inhales before diving determines both how much oxygen is available for that dive and where in the water column the turtle will be neutrally buoyant. With more air, the turtle is more buoyant and will float toward the surface unless it actively swims downward. With less air, it's less buoyant and can rest at greater depths without floating upward. As the turtle uses oxygen from its lungs during a dive, the decreasing volume of gas in the lungs causes the turtle to become gradually less buoyant, effectively changing its neutral buoyancy depth as the dive progresses. This relationship between respiration and buoyancy has important implications for diving behavior and may help explain the characteristic diving patterns seen in sea turtles. Most sea turtle species perform what scientists call U-shaped dives, descending to a particular depth, remaining there for an extended period, then ascending back to the surface. The depth at which they spend most of the dive is often the depth where they're neutrally buoyant, allowing them to rest on the bottom or float in mid-water without expending energy to maintain their position. Leatherback sea turtles, however, are the champions of depth among sea turtles. Their flexible carapace allows their lungs to compress significantly under pressure, preventing problems associated with diving to extreme depths. Leatherbacks regularly dive deeper than 3,000 feet, and some dives have been recorded exceeding 4,000 feet. At these depths, the pressure is crushing, more than 100 times greater than at the surface. The leatherback's body is uniquely adapted to withstand this pressure, with its compliant shell compressing without damage, and its lungs collapsing in a controlled manner that prevents the bends, the dangerous condition that can afflict human divers when nitrogen in their blood forms bubbles during ascent from depth. Why do leatherbacks dive so deep? The answer lies in their diet. Leatherbacks feed almost exclusively on jellyfish and other gelatinous organisms. Many jellyfish species undergo diel vertical migration, ascending toward the surface at night to feed and descending to deeper waters during the day to avoid predators. By diving to these depths, leatherbacks can access jellyfish populations that other predators can't reach. Research suggests that leatherbacks may use deep dives as reconnaissance missions, surveying where jellyfish are located in the water column, so they can position themselves optimally to feed when the jellyfish begin their nightly ascent. These deep dives demand extraordinary physiological resilience, and the leatherback's ability to repeatedly dive to such depths and then return safely to the surface represents one of the most impressive feats of diving physiology in the animal kingdom. When sea turtles do surface to breathe, the process is quick and efficient. The turtle extends its head above the water, opens its mouth and nostrils, and takes several rapid breaths in succession. Each exhalation forcefully expels air from the lungs, sometimes creating a visible spray that catches the light, a brief fountain in the blue. Each inhalation draws fresh air deep into the lungs with an audible rush. The entire breathing sequence may take just a few seconds to a minute, depending on how long the turtle has been submerged and how much activity it's engaged in. Divers who have observed sea turtles underwater describe the moment a turtle decides to surface as almost magical. The turtle, which may have been resting motionlessly on the sea floor or swimming along a reef, suddenly adjusts its buoyancy and angles upward. It rises through the water column with graceful efficiency, its flippers stroking in slow, powerful beats that propel it steadily toward the light above. Then, the turtle submerges again, often without any pause, resuming whatever activity it was engaged in before surfacing. This breathing pattern, short surface intervals separated by long submergences, defines the rhythm of a sea turtle's life in the ocean. It's a rhythm shaped by millions of years of evolution, a perfect balance between the turtle's need for oxygen and its need to remain submerged to feed, travel, and rest. The surface represents both safety and vulnerability for sea turtles. It's where they must go to breathe, but it's also where they're most visible to predators and most susceptible to threats like boat strikes. This tension influences their behavior, making them efficient breathers who minimize their time at the surface while maximizing the oxygen they obtain with each breath. Different species and individuals show variations in their breathing patterns. A resting turtle may surface only once every several hours, taking just a few breaths before returning to the bottom. An actively swimming turtle might surface every 30 to 40 minutes, breathing more frequently to support its elevated metabolism. A turtle that has been disturbed or frightened may surface sooner than it otherwise would, its reserves of oxygen depleted more quickly by the stress of escape. Temperature also plays a role. In cooler water, turtles can hold their breath longer because their reduced metabolism demands less oxygen. In warmer water, they must breathe more frequently, though they may also be more active, spending more time foraging and traveling. This interplay between physiology, behavior, and environment demonstrates the remarkable adaptability that has allowed sea turtles to thrive in diverse ocean conditions around the world. The diversity of sea turtle diets is remarkable, with different species specializing in different foods and occupying different ecological niches within marine ecosystems. This dietary specialization is often reflected in the shape and structure of the turtle's jaws, which have evolved to match their preferred prey. Green sea turtles, as adults, are the only primarily herbivorous sea turtles. Their lower jaw has fine serrations, like the teeth of a saw, perfectly adapted for sewing through tough seagrass blades and scraping algae from rocks and coral. They graze in shallow seagrass meadows, much like marine cattle, keeping the grass short and healthy through their feeding activities. This grazing is crucial for seagrass ecosystem health. Without it, seagrass beds can become overgrown, trapping sediment and organic matter that can smother the plants. By continuously cropping the seagrass, green turtles promote new growth and maintain productive habitats that support countless other marine species. The name green turtle, as mentioned earlier, doesn't come from the color of their shell, but from the greenish tint of their body fat, a color derived from the chlorophyll in their algae and seagrass diet. Interestingly, green turtles aren't herbivorous throughout their entire lives. As hatchlings and young juveniles, they're carnivorous, feeding on jellyfish, small crustaceans, fish eggs, and other animal prey. This dietary shift from carnivore to herbivore as they mature is unusual in the animal kingdom and highlights the flexibility and adaptability that has allowed sea turtles to thrive for so long. The transition occurs gradually, typically when the juvenile reaches the size of a dinner plate and returns to coastal waters from its oceanic phase. The change in diet requires not just behavioral adaptation, but also physiological changes in the digestive system to accommodate the breakdown of plant material, which is much more difficult to digest than animal tissue. Loggerhead sea turtles are carnivores equipped with massive, powerful jaws designed for crushing. Their diet consists primarily of hard-shelled invertebrates, including horseshoe crabs, conchs, whelks, clams, and other mollusks, as well as various crustaceans like crabs and lobsters. The loggerhead's jaw muscles are among the strongest of any sea turtle, capable of generating tremendous crushing force. The turtle positions its prey carefully in its jaws, then clamps down with enough power to crack even thick shells. Once the shell is broken, the turtle uses its jaws to manipulate and extract the soft tissue inside, discarding the shell fragments. This specialized feeding strategy fills an important ecological niche, as relatively few marine predators can efficiently consume heavily armored prey. Hawksbill sea turtles have one of the most specialized diets of any sea turtle, feeding almost exclusively on sponges. Coral reefs are home to a diverse community of sponge species, and hawksbills play a crucial role in controlling sponge populations and maintaining reef health. The hawksbill's narrow, pointed beak is perfectly designed for reaching into small crevices in the reef where sponges grow, What makes this diet truly remarkable is that many reef sponges contain toxic or indigestible compounds, glass-like spicules that deter most predators. Hawksbills, however, have evolved the ability to consume these sponges with no ill effects. By feeding on fast-growing sponge species that would otherwise overgrow and smother corals, hawksbills help maintain the structural diversity and health of coral reef ecosystems. Their grazing prevents any single sponge species from dominating the reef and creates space for corals and other sessile organisms to thrive. Leatherback sea turtles are gelatinivores, a term that means they eat gelatinous prey. Their diet consists almost entirely of jellyfish, salps, and other soft-bodied drifting organisms. The leatherback's mouth and throat are lined with backward-pointing spines called papillae, which prevent slippery prey from escaping once caught. These papillae extend all the way down the esophagus, forming a gauntlet that guides prey into the stomach while preventing it from being regurgitated. Leatherbacks can consume enormous quantities of jellyfish. Some estimates suggest that a large leatherback might eat jellyfish weighing as much as 440 pounds, equivalent to the weight of an adult lion in a single day. This massive consumption is necessary because jellyfish are mostly water, containing very little nutritional value per unit of weight. The leatherback must eat enormous volumes to extract enough nutrients to fuel its large body and power its long-distance migrations. Unfortunately, this diet makes leatherbacks particularly vulnerable to plastic pollution. Plastic bags drifting in the ocean bear an uncanny resemblance to jellyfish, and leatherbacks frequently mistake them for food and consume them. The plastic lodges in their digestive tract, unable to be digested or passed, potentially causing blockages or making the turtle feel full when it's actually starving. Research has found that over half of all leatherbacks examined have ingested some form of plastic, highlighting the severity of this threat. The same issue affects other sea turtle species to varying degrees, with juveniles being particularly susceptible since they often feed on small floating prey items and may encounter plastic fragments in surface waters. Olive Ridley and Kemp's Ridley sea turtles are both omnivores with relatively generalized diets. They feed on a variety of prey, including crabs, shrimp, mollusks, jellyfish, fish, sea urchins, and occasionally algae and seaweed. This dietary flexibility may contribute to the olive ridley's success as the most abundant sea turtle species. They can exploit a wide range of habitats and food sources, adapting their feeding behavior to whatever prey is most available in their current location. Kemp's ridleys, though closely related to olive ridleys, show a particular preference for crabs, which they hunt along sandy and muddy sea bottoms in shallow coastal waters. Flatback sea turtles, limited to waters around Australia and nearby regions, also have an omnivorous diet, consuming sea cucumbers, soft corals, jellyfish, shrimp, mollusks, and other benthic invertebrates. They typically feed in shallow waters over soft substrates, avoiding the rocky and coral reef habitats preferred by some other species. One of the most spectacular sights in the natural world occurs when, on certain beaches in just a handful of locations worldwide, the ocean seems to birth an army. The phenomenon is called an arribada, a Spanish word meaning arrival, and it represents one of nature's most extraordinary displays of synchronized behavior. During an arribada, thousands upon thousands of sea turtles emerge simultaneously from the ocean to nest, sometimes covering entire beaches with their bodies. transforming the sand into a living, moving carpet of shells and flippers. The aribada is unique to two sea turtle species, the olive ridley and the Kemp's ridley. While other sea turtles occasionally nest in groups, no other marine or terrestrial turtle species exhibits this kind of mass, synchronized nesting. The scale of an aribada defies easy comprehension. At the most spectacular events, tens of thousands of female turtles may come ashore over the course of just a few nights. One aribada at Ostional Beach in Costa Rica, documented in November of 1995, saw an estimated 500,000 female olive ridleys emerge to nest. The beach, stretching for miles, was so packed with turtles that individuals had difficulty finding space to dig, and latecomers often inadvertently destroyed earlier nests while excavating their own. Aribadas occur on only a few beaches worldwide, making them geographically rare even within the species that exhibit this behavior. In the Pacific, major aribada sites include several beaches along the coast of Mexico and Costa Rica, with Ostional Beach representing one of the largest and most reliably active sites. In the Indian Ocean, 3 major aribada beaches occur along the coast of Odisha, India, with the Gaharmatha Beach being particularly significant. In the Atlantic, Brazil hosts important aribada sites, though they're generally smaller than those in the Pacific. The Kemp's ridley, the most endangered of all sea turtles, has its primary aribada site at Rancho Nuevo in Mexico, though conservation efforts have helped establish secondary nesting beaches in Texas. Many olive ridley and Kemp's ridley sea turtles nest solitarily, scattered along beaches throughout their range. But these aribada sites concentrate nesting activity in ways that transform the ecological dynamics of the beach. The timing of aribadas follows somewhat predictable patterns, though the specific cues that trigger the mass emergence remain mysterious. At most sites, aribadas occur multiple times per year, often coinciding with lunar cycles. Many aribadas happen around the last quarter moon, when nights are darkest just before the new moon. This timing provides maximum darkness for the turtle's journey up the beach, reducing visibility for potential predators. However, lunar phase alone doesn't fully explain aribada timing, as not every appropriate lunar phase triggers an aribada. Scientists have proposed various hypotheses about what triggers these mass nesting events. Some research suggests that offshore winds, changes in ocean conditions, or even pheromones or other chemical signals released by gravid females might play a role. What's clear is that female turtles begin congregating in waters offshore several days or even weeks before the aribada, massing in large numbers just beyond the surf zone. Then, responding to some cue or combination of cues that scientists still don't fully understand, they emerge en masse, overwhelming the beach with their numbers. The evolutionary advantages of aribada nesting likely relate to predator satiation. Sea turtle nests are highly vulnerable to predation by a wide variety of animals, including crabs, foxes, coatis, raccoons, birds, and many others. On beaches where olive ridleys nest solitarily, predators may destroy more than 80% of nests, consuming the eggs before hatchlings can develop. During an aribada, however, the sheer number of nests deposited in a short time overwhelms the local predators. Even the most voracious predator can only eat so many eggs. By concentrating nesting in time and space, aribadas ensure that a substantial portion of the eggs survive simply because predators become satiated or too exhausted to continue hunting. This strategy works particularly well for smaller turtle species like Ridleys, which lay relatively shallow nests that are more vulnerable to predation than the deeper nests of larger species. However, Aribadas also create unique challenges. The density of nesting is so high that later arrivals often dig through earlier nests while excavating their own, destroying eggs laid just days before. At Ostional Beach, studies have found that during the first days of an Aribada, the destruction rate from subsequent nesters can exceed 90%. This has led to an unusual conservation strategy. The local community is permitted to harvest eggs from the first 3 days of an Aribada, a practice that might seem counterproductive, but actually reduces egg waste. The eggs harvested were likely to be destroyed anyway by later nesters, and the income generated provides economic incentive for the community to protect the beach and prevent illegal poaching. This carefully managed harvest, combined with strict protection during the remainder of the Aribada, has helped Ostional maintain one of the world's largest olive ridley populations. Walking among nesting turtles during an Aribada is an otherworldly experience. The beach teems with movement, shells everywhere catching glimmers of starlight, flippers throwing sand in all directions. The air fills with the sounds of turtles breathing, a collective exhalation that punctuates the rhythm of the waves. Some females excavate nests, their rear flippers methodically scooping sand with a rhythm that seems almost meditative in its consistency. Others lay eggs, entered into that trance-like state of reproductive focus, where the world around them seems to fade into insignificance. Still others, having completed nesting, lumber back toward the ocean, exhausted from their efforts, leaving wide tracks in the sand that weave between those of countless other turtles. The Aribada continues through the night, and often into subsequent nights, a multi-day event that leaves the beach transformed, pocked with thousands of fresh nest sites. The peak of activity typically occurs in the hours after midnight, when darkness is deepest and the turtles feel most secure. During these peak hours, it can become nearly impossible to walk without stepping between turtles, so dense is their congregation on the sand. The sound becomes almost overwhelming, a symphony of scraping shells, displaced sand, and rhythmic breathing that fills the tropical night. Local residents, who have witnessed dozens of Aribadas over their lifetimes, speak of the event with reverence, describing it as one of nature's most powerful demonstrations of abundance and the drive to reproduce. Scientists who study Aribadas face unique challenges in their research. How do you count tens of thousands of turtles arriving over multiple nights in darkness? How do you sample nests when new turtles are constantly digging through existing ones? How do you track individual females when they're surrounded by thousands of others that look nearly identical? Researchers have developed various methods, from dividing beaches into sectors and counting turtles in sample areas to using time-lapse photography to estimate numbers. Some studies have placed temperature loggers and other sensors in nests to track development and survival rates under the unique conditions created by high nest density. These studies have revealed that despite the destruction caused by later nesters, enough eggs survive to maintain populations, validating the Aribada strategy as an effective evolutionary adaptation. Then, as suddenly as it began, the Aribada ends. The females return to the ocean, and the beach falls quiet again, holding beneath its sand millions of developing eggs, the next generation waiting to emerge. In the weeks that follow, the nests incubate, and eventually, the beach will witness another spectacular event as millions of hatchlings emerge over the course of several weeks, creating their own mass emergence that transforms the beach once again into a living carpet, this time of tiny turtles scrambling toward the sea. Despite their ancient lineage and millions of years of evolutionary success, sea turtles today face challenges unlike anything their ancestors encountered. 6 of the 7 sea turtle species are classified as threatened or endangered, with populations declining dramatically over the past century. The threats they face are numerous, interconnected, and almost entirely the result of human activities. Understanding these threats is crucial because, unlike the challenges sea turtles have overcome in the past, these modern dangers require human intervention and behavioral change to address. One of the most significant threats to sea turtles worldwide is fisheries bycatch, the accidental capture of turtles in fishing gear. Hundreds of thousands of sea turtles are caught unintentionally each year in various types of commercial fishing equipment, including shrimp trawls, long lines, gill nets, and purse seines. Sea turtles must surface regularly to breathe, so when they become entangled in nets or hooked on long lines underwater, they often drown. Even if they survive the initial capture, injuries from hooks or prolonged submersion can lead to death later. The scale of bycatch mortality is staggering. In some fisheries, particularly shrimp trawling operations in the Gulf of Mexico and other regions, thousands of sea turtles were being killed annually before conservation measures were implemented. The development and required use of turtle excluder devices, or TEDs, in trawl nets has significantly reduced turtle deaths in some areas. These devices are metal grates or grids installed inside the net that allow turtles to escape while retaining the target catch. However, not all fisheries use TEDs, and compliance and enforcement remain challenges in many regions. Longline fishing, which uses thousands of baited hooks suspended from a main line that can stretch for dozens of miles, also captures large numbers of sea turtles. Research into circle hooks, which are less likely to be deeply swallowed by turtles, and careful bait selection have shown promise in reducing turtle bycatch in longline fisheries. Still, with millions of miles of longline deployed annually worldwide, the cumulative impact on sea turtle populations remains substantial. Coastal development poses another major threat to sea turtles. As human populations grow and coastal areas become increasingly developed, sea turtle nesting habitat is destroyed or degraded. Hotels, resorts, homes, and other structures built near beaches alter the natural environment in ways that make it unsuitable for nesting. Artificial lighting from beachfront development interferes with hatchlings' ability to find the ocean, causing them to crawl inland toward lights rather than seaward toward the water. Seawalls and other coastal armoring prevent adult turtles from accessing suitable nesting sites. Beach nourishment projects, which pump sand onto eroding beaches, can make the sand too compact for turtles to dig, or they may inadvertently bury existing nests too deeply for hatchlings to escape. Even foot traffic and recreational activities on beaches can compact sand, damage nests, or disturb nesting females, causing them to abandon their attempts or select suboptimal nest sites. Plastic pollution has emerged as a particularly insidious threat. More than 5 million metric tons of plastic enter the world's oceans every year, equivalent to dumping a garbage truck full of plastic into the sea every single minute. This plastic takes many forms, from large items like bottles and bags to microscopic particles that permeate the water column. Sea turtles encounter plastic at every stage of their lives. Hatchlings must crawl through plastic debris on beaches as they make their way to the ocean. Juveniles feed in areas where plastic accumulates, particularly near ocean gyres where converging currents concentrate floating debris. Adults swimming through their normal habitats encounter plastic regularly. More than half of all sea turtles worldwide have eaten plastic at some point in their lives, mistaking it for food or accidentally consuming it while feeding on legitimate prey. Plastic bags look remarkably similar to jellyfish when floating in water, making them particularly dangerous for leatherbacks and other jellyfish-eating species. But all sea turtle species consume plastic to some degree. When sea turtles eat plastic, the consequences can be fatal. Plastic can cause physical blockages in the digestive tract, preventing the turtle from eating real food. It can puncture intestinal walls, causing internal bleeding and infection. Perhaps most insidiously, plastic in the stomach can make a turtle feel full, even as it slowly starves to death. Research has shown that eating just one piece of plastic gives a sea turtle a 22% chance of dying. The more plastic consumed, the higher the mortality risk. Young turtles are particularly vulnerable, as they spend their early years in surface waters, where plastic tends to accumulate, and they feed on small floating items that are easily confused with plastic fragments. Entanglement in discarded fishing gear, sometimes called ghost gear, poses an additional threat. Abandoned nets, fishing line, and other gear drift through the ocean, continuing to trap and kill marine life for years, or even decades. Turtles caught in ghost gear may drown, starve, or suffer severe injuries to their flippers. Climate change represents perhaps the most far-reaching threat to sea turtles, with impacts that cascade through multiple aspects of their biology and ecology. Rising temperatures on nesting beaches are skewing sex ratios toward females, as we discussed earlier, potentially leading to demographic imbalances that could threaten population viability. Rising sea levels erode nesting beaches, reducing available habitat and, in some cases, completely eliminating beaches that have been used for generations. Storm intensity and frequency are increasing, with powerful hurricanes and tropical cyclones washing away nests or flooding beaches during the nesting season. Ocean warming affects the distribution and abundance of the prey species that sea turtles depend on, forcing turtles to travel farther to find food or adapt to new diets. Coral bleaching events, driven by elevated ocean temperatures, damage or destroy the reef, habitats that hawksbill turtles need for foraging, and that provide nursery areas for many marine species. Direct take, the intentional killing of sea turtles for meat, eggs, shells, or other products, has declined in many areas due to conservation laws and international treaties. But it remains a significant threat in parts of Africa, Asia, and Central and South America. Hawksbill turtles were particularly targeted historically for their beautifully patterned shells, which were carved into jewelry, combs, and decorative items in what was known as the tortoise shell trade. This trade, combined with other threats, drove hawksbill populations down by more than 90% before international protections were enacted. Turtle eggs are still consumed in many regions and harvested legally or illegally from nesting beaches. While controlled egg harvest programs, like that at Ostional Beach, can be sustainable when properly managed, unregulated collection can devastate populations. Adult turtles are killed for meat in some areas, with their meat considered a delicacy or traditional food source. Yet despite these daunting challenges, there is hope. Conservation efforts have made remarkable progress in protecting sea turtles and their habitats. Many nesting beaches are now protected as reserves or national parks, with dedicated guards preventing poaching and minimizing human disturbance. These protected areas serve as sanctuaries where turtles can nest without fear of disturbance, and where hatchlings have the best possible chance of making it to the sea. Research programs monitor nesting populations, track turtles using satellite telemetry, and study their ecology to inform conservation strategies. This research has revealed critical information about migration routes, feeding areas, and the specific threats different populations face, allowing conservationists to target their efforts where they'll have the greatest impact. Community-based conservation programs engage local people in turtle protection, providing economic alternatives to exploitation and fostering stewardship. These programs recognize that conservation cannot succeed without the support of communities living alongside sea turtles. By offering employment as nest monitors, ecotourism guides, or members of beach patrol teams, conservation organizations transform former poachers into protectors. In many coastal communities, sea turtles have become sources of pride and identity, with local residents taking ownership of conservation efforts and passing knowledge and commitment to future generations. International cooperation has led to treaties and agreements that protect sea turtles across borders. The Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species regulates the trade in sea turtle products, while regional agreements coordinate conservation efforts among countries that share sea turtle populations. These international frameworks acknowledge that sea turtles, as highly migratory species, require coordinated protection across their entire range. Some populations, once on the brink of extinction, have shown signs of recovery. Kemp's Ridley sea turtles, which numbered fewer than 300 nesting females in the 1980s, now see several thousand females nesting annually thanks to intensive conservation efforts, including nest protection, head-starting programs where hatchlings are raised in captivity before release, and the use of TEDs in fisheries. Hawksbill populations in some regions have stabilized after decades of decline. Green turtle populations in several areas, including Hawaii and parts of the Caribbean, have increased significantly. These success stories demonstrate that when given protection and support, sea turtle populations can recover, even from the edge of extinction. Public awareness has grown dramatically, with people worldwide recognizing sea turtles as symbols of ocean health and supporting conservation initiatives. Social media has amplified conservation messages, with images and videos of sea turtles reaching millions of people and inspiring action. Schools incorporate sea turtle conservation into their curricula, teaching children about marine ecosystems and the importance of protecting endangered species. Businesses have responded to consumer demand by reducing plastic packaging and supporting beach cleanup initiatives. This shift in public consciousness represents perhaps the most important conservation achievement, because lasting protection for sea turtles will require sustained commitment from society as a whole. The development of new technologies offers additional hope. Satellite tags have become smaller and more sophisticated, allowing researchers to track even juvenile turtles and gather detailed information about their movements and behavior. Environmental DNA analysis can detect turtle presence in an area from water samples, helping identify important habitats. Drones survey nesting beaches more efficiently than ground teams, counting nests and monitoring hatching success. These tools, combined with traditional conservation methods, provide powerful capabilities for understanding and protecting sea turtle populations. Looking forward, conservation strategies are evolving to address emerging threats, particularly climate change. Researchers are experimenting with methods to cool nests on beaches that are producing too many females, including shading nests with screens, irrigating them with seawater, or moving eggs to cooler locations. While these interventions can't solve the underlying problem of global warming, they may help maintain balanced sex ratios while broader climate action takes effect. The challenges facing sea turtles are significant, but they're not insurmountable. Every action, from reducing plastic use to supporting marine protected areas to respecting nesting beaches, contributes to their survival. These ancient mariners have endured for over 100 million years, surviving cataclysms that wiped out the dinosaurs and countless other species. With our help, they can endure the challenges of the modern world and continue their journeys across the oceans for millions of years to come. Each hatchling that makes it to the sea, each adult that successfully nests, each population that stabilizes and begins to grow, represents a victory and a reminder that conservation works when we commit to it. As we've explored tonight, sea turtles live extraordinary lives, from their temperature-determined beginnings beneath the sand to their decades-long odysseys across oceans, from their remarkable navigation abilities to their specialized diets, from spectacular mass nesting events to their crucial roles in marine ecosystems. They connect coastlines with the open ocean, the surface with the depths, the past with the present. They remind us that the natural world is full of wonders worth protecting, mysteries worth solving, and creatures worth saving. If you found this journey into the lives of sea turtles interesting, please consider liking this video and subscribing to Bedtime Biology. Your support helps us continue exploring the quiet wonders of the natural world, one species at a time. Rest well, and may your dreams carry you on gentle ocean currents, under starlit skies, toward distant shores.